Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. Welcome to yet another episode of Explained. The topic of this week, based on the popular demand, One Nation, One Election, or simultaneous elections to both Lok Sabha as well as state legislative assemblies. The idea of simultaneous elections is not something new, but this idea is considered to be very close to the Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Modi, and as such it becomes very important for us to understand. In this session, let us look at all that you need to know regarding One Nation, One Election. How? We will first look at what is this concept of simultaneous elections, what is the history of simultaneous elections in India, arguments in favor, arguments against. We will also look at, is this concept simultaneous elections or the idea of simultaneous elections basically a distraction, a red herring? That's what some critics say. And then we will also look at what is the way forward. But before we do that, press the like button. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet, and forget everything, and I'll take you to a fascinating journey on Indian elections. So let's get started. First up, what do we mean by simultaneous elections? Simultaneous elections is defined as synchronization of Indian election cycle in such a manner that elections to Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies is conducted simultaneously at the same time. But that does not mean that the elections will be conducted throughout the country on a single day at the same time. No. Elections to Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies will be conducted simultaneously, but then the election can be a multi-phase election, 3-phase, 5-phase, 7-phase, 9-phase. Simultaneous elections basically means you are a voter. You enter a polling booth, there are 2 EVMs. Press the button on an EVM and you are electing a local MLA. Press the button on an EVM and you're electing the member of Lok Sabha. That is what we call simultaneous elections or One Nation, One Election. But this idea, simultaneous elections, is not something new to India. The first general election, 1951-52, was conducted simultaneously along with all state legislative assembly elections. That means 1951-52, there was a period of simultaneous elections. Elections to Lok Sabha and all the state legislative assemblies were conducted simultaneously. And this process continued for the subsequent 3 elections as well. 1957, 1962, 1967 as well. But then the cycle of simultaneous elections was broken. And there were primarily 2 reasons for that. Reason number 1, some of the state legislative assemblies, they were prematurely dissolved in 1968 and 69 for a variety of reasons. And reason number 2, Lok Sabha itself was dissolved prematurely. The year was 1970. So these were the 2 reasons why and how the cycle of simultaneous elections got broken. Reason number 1, some state legislative assemblies were prematurely dissolved for a variety of reasons in 1968 and 1969, and Lok Sabha itself was prematurely dissolved in 1970. The reason was that the Congress party got split into Mrs. Indira Gandhi's faction, and there was another faction called Syndicate. And that was the reason why Indira Gandhi recommended to the president, please dissolve Lok Sabha, let's call the fresh elections. And the fresh election was conducted in 1971. So these were the reasons why this cycle of simultaneous elections got broken, because of the developments in 1968 to 1971. But after that, Election Commission of India in the year 1983 recommended, can we please go back to simultaneous elections? Then the year was 1999, the 170th report of the Law Commission, headed by Mr. BYJU'S Reddy, also recommended, let's go back to simultaneous elections. 2015, 79th Parliamentary Standing Committee report on Law and Justice also recommended, let's go back to simultaneous elections. And in the year 2017, a research paper was published by the Niti Aayog, the think tank of the government, titled Analysis of Simultaneous Elections. What, why, and how. All of them recommended, let's go back to simultaneous elections. Why? Let's now look at the arguments in favor of simultaneous elections. Then we will look at the arguments against. Towards the end of 2018, there were elections to Madhya Pradesh, one state was Maharashtra, one state was, I guess it was Rajasthan, the other state was Madhya Pradesh, the other state was Chhattisgarh. Then 2019, Lok Sabha elections. Then there were elections to Maharashtra, Haryana, Jharkhand, Delhi Legislative Assembly elections, and then in Bihar. And now we are going to see elections to Tamil Nadu Legislative Assembly, West Bengal, Puducherry. It seems as if we are in a continuous cycle of elections. And that is why some people say, let's go back to simultaneous elections. What is the reason? What is the need? What are the arguments in favor? Number one, recently Tamil Nadu state government issued an order that we will have 3 lakh teachers, both from private schools as well as government schools. And we need them for election duty. The election is scheduled for May 2021. But look at it this way. These teachers are to be trained. These teachers are required to conduct elections as well. Then they will be required during the counting process as well. But at the same time, Tamil Nadu government has also decided to reopen schools. That means on one hand, we need these 3 lakh teachers on election duty. On the other side, we need these teachers to impart education to the school children as well. And it will play a havoc on the entire school schedule. That is why in our push for frequent elections, we sometimes fail to understand the impact of these frequent elections on our society. And that is why some people say, let's go back and adopt simultaneous elections. Argument number one, frequent elections. It has an impact on the governance and primarily because of model code of conduct. What is this model code of conduct? As soon as the election dates are announced, till the declaration of results, model code of conduct is in play. The objective of this model code of conduct is to ensure a level playing field so that all political parties, all candidates contesting the election, they have an equal opportunity to win the election. That means for the ruling political party, there are serious restrictions, limitations imposed by this model code of conduct, which means no new schemes can be launched, no new policies can be launched. It basically means no foundation stone can be laid. It basically means you cannot even announce a new scheme, policy, which basically means effectively, except the routine administrative activities, other developmental programs, welfare schemes, they are suspended till the time model code of conduct is applicable. And when model code of conduct is applicable, basically it leads to policy paralysis as well. Frequent elections, frequent imposition of model code of conduct, and it has an impact on the governance, it has an impact on the general population of this country as well. That is why let's go back to simultaneous elections so that because of model code of conduct, this policy paralysis, this impact on governance is taken care of. That's reason number one. Reason number two, frequent elections lead to massive expenditures by government. Forget about the donations of corporates to various political parties, donations of individuals to various political parties. Let's focus on the expenditure of the government on elections. If it's a Lok Sabha election, on the actual conduct of election, all expenses are borne by the central government. When I say actual expenditure, I'll tell you the reason what. That means if it's a Lok Sabha election, actual expenditure is borne by the central government. If it's a state legislative assembly election, the actual expenditure is borne by the state government. But if it is a simultaneous election, elections are conducted together simultaneously, then the expenses are shared between the central government and the state government. On top of that, whether it's a Lok Sabha election or it's a state legislative assembly election, the expenditure towards the maintenance of law and order is entirely borne by the state government. Now imagine if the elections are held simultaneously, together for Lok Sabha as well as state legislative assemblies, then what will happen? The expenses will be shared between the central government and the state government. And ultimately, the money that will be saved, the public money that will be saved, the money of yours and mine that will be saved, we can use it for various social security programs, social security schemes, welfare programs. That's another argument in favor of simultaneous elections. Another argument is engagement of security forces for significantly longer duration. Let me give you one example. 16th Lok Sabha election, when it was conducted, Election Commission of India took the help of 10 million personnel for the conduct of election. 10 million personnel. The number of polling booths, 9,30,000, which basically means for one polling booth, we had 10.75 personnel required for the smooth conduct of elections. But if we need presiding officers for polling booth, if we need election observers for polling booths, they are required only for few days. Few days before the election, few days after the election, few days before the counting, few days after the counting. So for a short duration, we require these polling personnel. But when it comes to the security forces, we need them for the entire duration of election, for the entire conduct of election. That means these security personnel, CRPF for example, they are transported from one area to another area, from one state to another state. Imagine the fatigue, which basically means it has an impact on our internal security as well. Because the job of these paramilitary troops is to ensure the internal security of our nation. Now imagine, if the election is conducted simultaneously, both to Lok Sabha as well as state legislative assemblies, paramilitary troops will be used only for one period. That means for the remaining part, for the next 4.5 years, they can focus on internal security. That is why, let's go back to simultaneous elections. Another argument, frequent elections disrupt public life. So there are rallies by various political leaders, there are traffic jams as well. So basically there is chaos on the roads when there are frequent elections. This can be taken care of if the elections are conducted simultaneously once in 5 years. Unfortunately, just before elections, we see caste conflict, unfortunately communal conflict as well. So as soon as elections are approaching in a particular state, we see these caste conflicts, religious communal conflicts. Why can't we ensure that elections are conducted simultaneously, both to Lok Sabha as well as state legislative assemblies, so that even if there is a caste conflict, even if there is a communal conflict, it can be only for one brief period. For the remaining 4.5 years, let's focus on governance and let's have a peaceful society to live in. Another argument in favor of simultaneous elections. Another argument, Law Commission says if elections are conducted simultaneously, it will boost voter turnout, which basically means people would say we have to vote only once in 5 years. These are not frequent elections, these are not periodic elections. So let's come out in large numbers and vote once every 5 years. So according to Law Commission, the voter turnout will increase if elections are conducted simultaneously. Then I approach a minister's office because I have some work, and the PA of the minister says the minister is busy campaigning in Bihar because there are elections in Bihar. Please come after the elections. I go back after the elections. The PA says the minister is busy in West Bengal elections. Come after West Bengal elections. I go back again. The minister is busy somewhere else. So basically it means the governance takes a hit when there are periodic elections, frequent elections. Let's have elections once every 5 years so that for the remaining 4.5 years, the ministers can focus on governance, the ministers can focus on the resolution of the grievances of the people of this country. That's another argument in favor of simultaneous elections. Then we have a situation where if there is an important policy of the government of India or the government of a state, let's say the government of India wants, let's have more FDI in insurance. Let's have more FDI in multi-brand retail. But what the government does, it holds off this policy decision. Why? Because there is election in a particular state. Let this election be over. After that, we will announce this policy. That means frequent elections, what it leads, the government of the day, they prefer that let's postpone, let's put off the implementation of difficult structural reforms till the election is over, till the election in a particular state is over. Let's have simultaneous elections so that there is no policy paralysis, there is no governance deficit, and let's have a society which lives in peace, tranquility, without any social conflict, without any communal conflict. And these are the arguments in favor of simultaneous elections. And that's what Prime Minister Modi also says. Prime Minister Modi, in one of the functions, he said, and I quote, "If India is to meet the challenge of change, mere incremental progress is not enough. A metamorphosis is needed. My vision for India is a rapid transformation, not a gradual evolution." And to realize this vision, to realize this objective, we need to go back to simultaneous elections, both to Lok Sabha as well as state legislative assemblies. But now, let's look at the arguments against. The critics who say we should not go for simultaneous elections. What are their arguments? What are their concerns? Concern number one, operational feasibility or doability. And let me make it as simple as possible for you to understand. Let's say, for example, there are elections to Lok Sabha and there are elections to 28 states as well. Let's say, for example, in these 28 states, we have a stable government. That means there is one political party which has won the election decisively, and this political party is in a position to form the government. But at the center, Lok Sabha, there is no stable government. There is a coalition government. Does that mean the stable government in all these 28 states, they will have to sacrifice their stable governments because at the center we do not have a stable government? Does that mean we need to conduct fresh elections in all these 28 states again because they are sacrificing themselves for the sake of a stable government at the center? That means operationally, implementation-wise, it becomes very difficult to implement simultaneous elections. Something else. Let's say, for example, if there is a stable government at the center, but there is stable government only in 14 states, and in the remaining 14 states, there is unstable government. After a year, the government collapsed. What will happen to the remaining 4 years? Does that mean for the remaining 4 years, we will have to impose president's rule in those states where the government has collapsed after 1 year or after 2 years? Is that constitutionally possible to suspend governance in a particular state because we do not have a stable government there? That means doability, operational feasibility is a concern in the smooth implementation of simultaneous elections. That's argument number one. Argument number two, it has an impact on voter behavior. A study was conducted. There are 31 instances from 1989 till 2014. 1989 till 2014, there have been 31 instances where Lok Sabha as well as state legislative assembly election was conducted simultaneously. And out of these 31, in 24 times, major political parties polled almost similar proportion of votes. both for Assembly as well as for Lok Sabha elections, which means people, they get confused. When you are asked to vote simultaneously both for Lok Sabha as well as state legislative assemblies, how is it possible for voters to differentiate that whether I'm going to vote for Lok Sabha or I'm going to vote for state legislative assemblies? And the data tells us that out of 31 times, 24 times, there has been same party winning the election or winning the number of votes, both for Lok Sabha as well as state legislative assemblies. That is why national issues will dominate. That means if elections are held simultaneously, people will seek votes in the name of Pakistan, in the name of Article 370. That means national issues will dominate. Local issues, they will be relegated to the back burner. Which means possibly in Maharashtra, if the local issue is farmer suicide, if the local issue is agriculture, if the local issue is that there is monsoon dearth in various areas in Maharashtra, all these local issues will be relegated to the back burner, national issues will dominate. And when national issues dominate, national political parties will have an advantage. And when national political parties have an advantage, regional political parties will suffer. And if you are going to impose simultaneous elections on this country, then the entire federal constitution will transform itself into a unitary constitution, where there won't be any regional political parties, there will be only the dominance of national political parties. But let's counter this argument here. 2019, when Lok Sabha election was conducted, and at the same time, elections were conducted to Odisha Legislative Assembly. And in the Odisha Legislative Assembly, Naveen Patnaik of the BJD won with a thumping majority. But same election, same people are voting. In the national election, in the Lok Sabha election, the BJP won 8 seats. That means people are not so naive in this country that they will be confused whether they are voting for a national election or they are voting for a state election. That means they made a distinction clear in 2019 when Odisha voted. In local elections, in legislative assembly elections, they gave thumping majority to a regional political party. But when it came to the national election, they voted overwhelmingly in favor of the BJP. Let's take the example of Delhi. 2019 elections, 7 out of 7 were backed by the BJP. But just few months later, when the elections to Legislative Assembly was conducted, 62 out of 70 seats were backed by a regional political party, the Aam Aadmi Party. That means people are not too naive in India that they will confuse themselves whether it's a Lok Sabha election or a state legislative assembly election. But Professor Sanjay Kumar, who is the director of Center for Study of Developing Societies, and Professor Jagdeep Chokar, who belongs to Association for Democratic Reforms, what they say, it's a very important quote. They say simultaneous elections will curb the voice of the people living at the margins of the society. It will strangulate the scope for regional political parties. That is why we should not go for simultaneous elections. Argument number 3, it may reduce accountability. Politicians in India, they have a habit of turning a blind eye towards the grievances of the people. After they are elected, they disappear. And they come back only when a fresh election is announced. Frequent elections means frequently these MLAs and MPs will go back to the people. But if there is a simultaneous election, once in every 5 years, that means for the remaining part of 4.5 years, these legislators, they will disappear. They will not go back to the people. That means accountability will be reduced. And on top of that, we do not have something called right to recall, where if we are not satisfied with our representative in Lok Sabha or Legislative Assembly, we can recall that legislator. So unless and until we have right to recall, we should not implement simultaneous elections in India. Another thing, it may affect job creation as well. One beautiful argument was given by former Chief Election Commissioner S.Y. Qureshi. He said, जब जब देश में चुनाव आता है, गरीब के पेट में पुलाव आता है. Elections, frequent job creation. That means more and more advertisements in the newspapers. They also get the revenue, and that also leads to job creation. More and more pamphlets are to be published and distributed. So printing presses are abuzz with activity. Restaurants where these political leaders, they go, visit, eat along with their workers, they're also abuzz with activity. So more frequency in elections, more better job prospects for the people of this country. That means let's have periodic elections. Let's have frequent elections. Let's not go for simultaneous elections. And the last, it may be difficult to find a suitable time slot. Our country is diverse in terms of geography. Which month should we go for simultaneous elections? That means it may be difficult to find a time slot as well, considering the fact that we have festivals, we have board examination, we have different seasons, weather conditions in different parts of the country as well. So feasibility of holding simultaneous election, that is also problematic. So what we discussed, what is this concept of simultaneous elections? What do we mean by simultaneous elections? What are the arguments in favor of simultaneous elections? What are the arguments against simultaneous elections as well? But let's look at the global picture. Sweden, for example, elections to local council, local county councils, local municipal councils, and to the legislature conducted simultaneously. So if Sweden can do it, why can't we? South Africa, from which we have borrowed various provisions in our constitution as well, which is sometimes an inspiration for us as well. In South Africa, the elections to the provincial legislatures as well as to the national legislatures is conducted simultaneously. United Kingdom, for example, there is a law which was passed in 2011. That's called Fixed Term Parliaments Act 2011. What does that mean? That means if we want to implement simultaneous elections, for that we need to prescribe a fixed term to our legislatures. Something like United Kingdom has done. The House of Commons, the tenure is fixed for 5 years. Can there be midterm election? For that, 2/3 of the members of the House of Commons, they will have to vote and they will have to seek fresh election. That means normally the term of the lower house of British Parliament is fixed at 5 years. There will be midterm election, or there can be midterm election, but for that 2/3 of the members of the House of Commons, they will have to vote and seek fresh elections. Or if there is a vote of no confidence against the Prime Minister, this vote of no confidence, if it is passed against the Prime Minister, then new government is sworn in. If this new government is not in a position to get a confidence motion passed, then there will be fresh election. That means if we want to implement simultaneous elections, we need to provide a fixed term to our legislatures as well. Apart from that, look at Germany. In Germany, for example, the Bundestag, which is the lower house of German parliament. This lower house of German parliament, it cannot issue the vote of no confidence against the chancellor. So if there has to be a vote of no confidence, this vote of no confidence should be issued together with vote of confidence as well. That is what we call constructive vote of no confidence. To make it simple for you to understand, let's say for example in Madhya Pradesh, we have Mr. Shivraj Singh Chauhan as the Chief Minister. The Council of Ministers, they are accountable to Legislative Assembly. That means they will hold office till they command majority in Legislative Assembly. The moment they lose majority in Legislative Assembly, they have no other option but to resign. Clear? How do we test the majority? For that, Mr. Kamal Nath, the opposition leader, he has to introduce a vote of no confidence against Shivraj Singh Chauhan. But what we need similar to what is happening in Germany. If Mr. Kamal Nath says that Shivraj Singh Chauhan does not have the majority on the floor of the Legislative Assembly, he needs to prove that he in turn has the majority on the floor of Legislative Assembly, which basically means introduce no confidence motion, but together with confidence motion. That means if you think that Shivraj Singh Chauhan does not have the majority, you prove that you have the majority on the floor of the Legislative Assembly. If you can't do that, Shivraj Singh Chauhan will continue. That's something we need to do in India as well if we want to implement simultaneous elections. Not just vote of no confidence, constructive vote of no confidence together with vote of confidence as well. And for that, we need to amend the constitution. Why? Because the duration of Lok Sabha, although it is 5 years, but we have to prescribe a fixed term of 5 years. Because if the duration is 5 years, it can also be dissolved. According to Article 85, the President can dissolve Lok Sabha on the advice of the Prime Minister and his Council of Ministers. This is something that we will have to remove through a constitutional amendment. Why? Because we have to provide a fixed term to our legislatures. Not just for Lok Sabha, for state legislative assemblies as well. Similarly, we have to amend then Article 356, which basically means some of the aspirants, they are confused. Sir, how do we implement simultaneous elections? For that, do we need to amend the constitution? Yes. Why? Because under Article 356, if there is a breakdown of constitutional machinery in a particular state, for that what will happen? That state government is dismissed and ultimately it is placed under President's rule. And over a period of time, the legislative assembly of that state is also dissolved. So we need to change that as well. And that is why we need constitutional amendment if we want to implement simultaneous elections in this country. But now, let's look at another argument of the critics. Critics say that this concept or this idea of simultaneous elections is basically a red herring, basically a distraction. We are being distracted from the real issues and we are forced to look at only one issue, which is the simultaneous elections. If we want to ensure the sanctity of our electoral process, for that we don't need simultaneous elections. We need change in other election related things. For example, the rhetoric is, according to critics, those who do not want simultaneous elections in this country, they say Prime Minister is saying, why should the country waste so much money in frequent elections? The answer to that rhetoric is, if we do not want to waste money, why are we wasting money in constructing another Parliament House, the Central Vista project? Why are we calling for tenders to have a brand new aeroplane for the President and the Prime Minister? That means we are wasting our money, public resources, on other unnecessary things as well. So focus on that rather than focusing on simultaneous elections. Who is saying this? Critics. Critics also say we need to focus on post-election defections. Forget about simultaneous elections. Look at what happened in Karnataka. Look at what happened in Madhya Pradesh. In Karnataka, there was Congress-JDS government. But few members from the Congress and the JDS, they resigned. And when they resigned, BJP was in a position to form the government. That means resignations, it's a loophole in anti-defection law. Anti-defection law was enacted by the parliament to ensure that there is stability in the government. But now there is no stability. All you have to do, bribe the MLAs, they will resign from their parties, they will contest fresh elections, and then the sanctity of the election, the sanctity of the electoral process is violated. So what we need a change in anti-defection law. What sort of change? If I am an MLA or an MP, I am elected to Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha or Legislative Assembly. If I resign, not only should I be disqualified, I should not be allowed to contest election for the remainder of the term as well. which means if I was elected to Legislative Assembly for 5 years, and after 1 year, I resigned and joined another political party, I should not be allowed to contest for the remaining 4 years. That is what we need to focus on rather than simultaneous elections. Number 2, we should be focusing on electoral bonds. What is this electoral bond? If I want to donate money to a political party, what I need to do, I need to approach the State Bank of India. And I will pay State Bank of India in the form of check, in the form of digital transaction, NEFT, RTGS. I will buy an electoral bond, which can be for 10,000 rupees, 1 lakh rupees, 1 crore rupees. And I will deposit this electoral bond into the bank account of a political party. But this entire transaction is anonymous. That means nobody comes to know who is donating to which political party. Which basically means, for example, if I am an environmentalist, if I believe in the conservation of environment, I would want to vote for a political party which also believes in the conservation of environment. But because of these electoral bonds, maybe the polluter of the environment is donating money to my political party. And I don't want to vote for that political party because this political party gets the donation from the polluter of the environment. But because of these electoral bonds, I will never come to know. Because the entire process lacks transparency. The entire process is opaque. So rather than focusing on simultaneous elections, let's focus on reforming anti-defection law. Rather than focusing on simultaneous elections, let's focus on electoral bonds. Electoral bonds should be dissolved. Electoral bonds should be done away with. Let's focus on unlimited spending by political parties. There is a limit to the amount of money that a candidate can spend in an election. For example, 70 lakhs, 40 lakhs, 28 lakhs. It varies from constituency to constituency. So there is a limit to the amount of money that a candidate can spend in an elections. But there is absolutely no limit on the amount of money that a political party can spend. And if there is no limit to the amount of money that a political party can spend in an election, it basically means free and fair election, which is part of the basic structure of Indian Constitution. It is also getting violated. Let's impose a limit on the spending of political parties rather than focusing on simultaneous elections. Something else. Critics, or those who believe in simultaneous elections, they say elections in a democracy, they are means for good governance. But if we have frequent elections, governance take a hit. Which basically means too much democracy is bad for India. That's what the CEO of Niti Aayog, Mr. Amitabh Kant, said. There is too much democracy in India. So the underlying argument is that if you want to repeatedly seek the mandate of the people, it is anti-democratic. Why should in a democracy, repeated seeking of the mandate from the people of this country should be viewed as something which affects the governance? Shouldn't and isn't democracy all about repeatedly seeking the mandate of the people? That is why forget about simultaneous elections. Let's look at these critical issues. Another issue is political parties are still not under RTI, Right to Information Act. Bring political parties under RTI. That should be our focus rather than simultaneous elections. And lastly, we should have a look at proportional representation system. Right now, what is the system that we follow? First past the post system. That means in a particular constituency, if there are 1 lakh people who have voted, who is the candidate from this constituency? Somebody who gets the highest number of votes. Somebody who gets the highest number of votes, not necessarily majority of votes. There have been instances where from a particular constituency, the candidate who got only 10% votes, he is your representative because we follow first past the post system. Why can't we ensure a proportional representation system? Why can't we ensure that based on the number of people who have voted for you, Those many candidates of yours should be there in the parliament, should be there in legislative assembly. That should be the focus. What is simultaneous elections? That we discussed. What are the arguments in favor of simultaneous elections? That we discussed. What are the arguments against simultaneous elections? That we discussed. What is the global picture? That's also something that we discussed. We need to amend the constitution if we want to implement simultaneous elections in this country. That's also something that we discussed. And then critics say this entire concept or the idea of simultaneous election is like a red herring. It's a distraction. We are being distracted from focusing on the real issues, and these are the real issues. Let's focus on them rather than simultaneous elections. But then, let's go for a compromise. What is the compromise? Even if you are against the idea of simultaneous elections, one thing is sure. The existing system of frequent elections, it is something which is not desirable. It is something which is undesirable. Let's go for a compromise. Even if you do not want to implement simultaneous elections, can we do one thing? We will have Lok Sabha election once in 5 years, and we will have state legislative assembly elections together. That means one election, national election, one election for all the state legislative assemblies. That's something that we can do. Let's do that. Even if you're not satisfied with this, we have another compromise. What is the compromise? Let's say, for example, the next Lok Sabha election is in 2024. Let's have the general election in 2024. But then let's have a state election in 2026 for half of the state legislative assemblies. Then in 2028 for other half of the state legislatures. So that we do not have a situation where in one particular year, in the initial part of a year, we have elections in few states. Then in the middle part of a year, we have elections in other states. Then towards the end of that year, we have elections in other states. That is something which is completely undesirable. Let's implement this. Even if you're not satisfied with this, we have another compromise. And what is the compromise? Let's ensure that elections falling in one calendar year at least should be clubbed together, so that we can have one particular period in a particular year which is reserved for elections. And then all the ill effects of frequent elections will be taken care of. That is the idea of simultaneous elections. That is the compromise in favor of an alternative towards simultaneous elections. And that is it from our explained segment. Thank you for being with us. If you haven't yet,